Ladies and gentlemen, welcome one and all to the NordVPN Miami Grand Prix. Here with the SwiftX racing season. It's great to be here, great to be back with some racing after a big wait, a big gap. It's good to be back now. So Miami, fresh circuit to the F1 calendar here for F1 22, built around the stadium, car parks, but has no shortage of drama on the circuit. 3 DRS zones, 19 turns, 3.362 miles of driving insanity, say, especially that final complex coming through, say, the turn 15 and 16 odd. It's great to see a bit of a challenge in terms of driving. So I think it's a unique challenge that I don't think any drivers here, compared to some more traditional circuits, are really used to. But of course, joining me in the commentary box, none other than Mr. Dean Biggles. How are you doing, my friend?
Great to be back in South Florida, of course. They're not so well conditions that we have currently at the moment, but it is actually South Florida, of course, so you do have to expect a little bit of high humidity. And, well, it's quite nice, actually, when you do get a bit of rain, because it cools the temperature down and has to cool the heat that's forming up in this championship at the moment. Right, Ben?
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be all to play for. So we've got some fast faces, some returning faces, and with this final split, it all comes down to the wire. For both championships, it's all about these next few races, because this is where everything is decided. We can see the heavens practically have opened in response, seeing as we are all the way down in Miami. And first out on track, so it's going to be the Aston Martin.
Getting a little bit of test during the course. Everybody at the moment's on the intermediate tyres. Will be on the intermediate tyres, you'd hope. Are we going to see a showdown for the sprint weekend like we did just recently in Formula 1, isn't it? Are we going to see a shocker? Are we going to see a Haas on pole? Somebody that's not usually to be there. Well, once again, you said familiar names. Well, have a look at that car currently sitting in P7. Is that a name you have recognized before in the past?
I'd say it's a bit more of, say, background name personally, at least from my perspective, because we have a few driver swaps in the last splits, people coming in, people coming out, and we have people who are, say, maybe had to miss the last couple of rounds, but maybe coming back into the fray. Either way, on board, say, that tight section there, Miami, and I think going under the bridge, I think if there's one defining area of this circuit, it's going to be that under the bridge section, just because it's so tight and technical.
This track is very, very technical. Of course, no elevation changes. It's essentially a car park built around the Dolphin Stadium. Of course, the Hard Rock Stadium you can see right there in your pictures. And Jack, welcome everybody in the chat. Of course, Jack's hungry. Jack, sorry you're hungry, mate. There's lots of food vendors around here in Miami, so I'm not surprised why you can't find one, but there are plenty of them.
I think everyone's focused on the racing, so even the vendors, even everyone is all out in force, seeing what's going on. A rainy Miami circuit, and yet they're out here throwing these carbon fiber masterpieces around a track, lap in, lap out. So short qualifying here, 15 minutes, essentially one chance before we head into the sprint race. And to say, I think our final sprint race of the season here.
Getting down to the business end, aren't we? Definitely of the championship, so it's time to step up to the big boy club there and get as many points as you can and see how you're going to be panning out for the championships. Of course, don't forget you've also got Constructors' Championship, so if you can't win the Drivers' Championship, you have to do something about it, because it's close between Mercedes and Ferrari, of course, and if Aston Martin can get, and Haas can get some decent results this weekend, they could be very much bringing it to the top two teams in our SwiftX Motorsport Championship, provided, of course, by NordVPN. And I use NordVPN all the time, trust me. Not just saying that because they're one of our sponsors. I use NordVPN because I like to look up. I actually like to watch a lot of those British shows on Netflix that you can't get here in my America's IP address. And so I just switched over to a UK IP address and I get to see all that British comedy.
Beautiful stuff. Well, we're on board now with Mr. Jackson, as in that Williams. So far on good form there. We're going to see what they come out in terms of sectors. Foss coming through with a 133.801, setting the benchmark for the session so far. 14 minutes to go, and Jackson looks to be on good form. You can see carrying the speed through the second sector. It was green S1. Can they make it a purple to open up and really put a statement out to the other drivers just who they're messing with? Because we've seen Jackson be a bit of a topic of conversation these past few rounds, at least from your corner of the box there.
He's improving and improving and improving. And why not? But this is also, remember, as a controller player and not a steering wheel player, these tight little twisty turns, very similar, of course, to what you'd have to put like Jetta as well. So, you know, but just the S's just on this track, it's insane, isn't it? You go from 11 all the way down to 16. It's just consistent left, right, left, right, left, right. But it's more about the slow, the high-speed turns, of course, 5 and 6 and stuff like that. Maybe a little kink in 9 and 10 are very difficult to do with the slightest angles on your controller.
Yeah, well, it is very difficult, and I think this is where the weakness a little bit of controller comes into play. It's a 136.7, so early days, but still, I think controller not having that level of granularity with your input, as well as not being able to, let's say, really manage the tires as well. Combined with that, all with the wet, and it's a very much an uphill battle here for some of the drivers, and especially say controller. But looks like that is Tembrinka out of the session completely, fired it into the wall without a time, and looks to be starting from the back of the grid as their car has received terminal damage.
That's not a good sign already, isn't it? It's tricky conditions, of course, but it's not a completely soaked track. You can see there's barely any puddles. Hopefully no puddles forming. That's when you'd probably get that switchover point to go to the wet tires, but at the moment it enters. Looking for the track radar that I'm looking at for the Doppler radar. It doesn't look like it's going to change too much in these conditions. I don't expect you're going to see dries. If somebody does take a gamble and dries, good luck to them. But first of all, got to keep it out of the fence, and you can see that already. We've just claimed one victim.
Yeah, they've got to keep it on the straight and narrow, at least for the time being. On board with Erlinghausen now, trying to get a time on the boards. You've got Franklin coming in with a 133.501, a perfect 0.3 ahead of their teammate, and certainly continuing to put on good form for the Aston Martins. But saying that, it looks like is that Casson in the McLaren? Yep. I think that's just that correct?
Right. Yes, it is. By about 0.2 almost, and I expect to see some of this track. I'm seeing some purples and some greens and stuff for drivers. So as they get used to it, after they get one banker lap in there, times are going to tumble tooth and nail.
Saying I'm more used to him being in an Aston Martin. It's almost thrown me for a second there. Either way, say Erlinghausen on good form. It's 2 green sectors. Just need to carry that momentum to the end, and they've got a good chance at some high-ranking positions. Haven't really got much in terms of field spread sorted out yet, because we've seen some times all across the board. But that is a 134.1. There's about a second, just over a second, under a second even, behind our leader. And that's going to be slotting into P8 for now.
And, well, Djokovic, of course, you need to keep an eye on Mr. Emar back in this time around an Alpha Tauri here. Absolutely flying through the first sector. Set the quickest time. Now, I've just got an updated weather forecast, too, on the Doppler radar that we could have rain stopping in about 5 minutes' time. So we may very well see some dry tires come out. This could be an absolute dash. Last across the line could be very much the quickest driver here in Miami.
And that is one we have to see. We've got on board with Noah right now, as Korsgaard is another, and so is Iacorpi. 3 drivers have stacked it in the wet and are out of the session. 2 of them not to set a time at all, and Korsgaard in P10, but seeing as they don't have any more chances and 10 minutes still to go, I think the writing is almost on the wall there for them. You can see drivers up and down the field are struggling to keep their car under control.
That's why I would do it. I just a consistent like banker lap there first. You could see like Mr. Kloss there, AJ, Joshua Bashford, beyond the board. Just putting, you know, they're about a second and change down the road there. Now they have the pace, but they put the bankers in first just to be safe, just so you got something on the board there. Because obviously if you don't get a time on the board whatsoever, you're going to be starting exactly back where some of these drivers haven't put a time in yet. Korsgaard did put a time in, but the other 2 drivers didn't. Look at the green Aston Martin driver currently at the moment, the Norwegian driver of Johnny. He's blazing up this track at the moment. He wants to celebrate right there in front of all the screaming fans here in South Florida. Aston Martin to the top of the timesheet.
Yeah, so 0.106, and it's looking very strong. Let's see, we're back on board with Lawson right now as they look to be trying to set a lap, but they're a little bit squirrely. And I was going to say about the DNF drivers that in the case of Korsgaard, at least, there is a time on the board. They have the banker, so they might not be at the sharp end, but they still will be able to get some positions on the likes of Ilacorpi and Tabrinka, who haven't really planned it out all that well. But say Larson does go round, so drops the rear, but it's enough to keep it on track. They controlled themselves quite nicely, although they'll have to get out of the way fast of some other drivers.
This is absolutely 8 minutes and change left of the qualifying session right now. It's a short qualifying out there, not a full, because it's a sprint weekend. After that, of course, we have a 10-lap sprint race, and then we have a 30-lap feature race. See, the rain's now starting to stop there, Ben. So you got about a couple of minutes, isn't it, once it stops before you may contemplate putting those soft tires on.
Yes, and as a lot comes through for P10, just over a second behind, say 134. It is really a good question that you need to ask yourself, but also could it compromise your tires in terms of your tire budget going down? Because you have to worry a little bit about one, getting around the track in time. So I think about 2:30 is where we're going to see everyone going for those judgment calls. Looks like someone has already jumped on it though. Larson and Casson both going straight to the soft, even though it is still raining out there. It is easing, but it's still coming down.
We'll keep an eye on those times, of course. He hasn't even set a good, decent lap in. He's got 13 seconds right down there. Well, that's not even a distance lap. Also, you keep getting temperature in those tires. It is a great gamble. And can you fuel the car up for a couple laps? Even if you do fuel the car up for a couple laps, remember the fact that you'll be back in just a second. Sorry.
Here's a Hentaken, another driver who we expect on the sharp end. So one of the drivers who really needs to nail this race. I say the sprint race, core points in it, as well as their fight for the top half of the championship. Now we do have a few, a very powerful and very fast driver returning to the field. So after a hiatus, it's going to be Emir joining back for the final split. So this championship battle just got a heck of a lot more interesting. And for the likes of Tanakan, I would be a little worried. Lapalainen goes through, so 133.304. That's going to be enough for P3 there. Let's check in on Larson and see how they're handling those soft tires. They're looking pretty strong, but they do need to get a bit of a wiggle on if they want to take full advantage of that slick rubber. So they got a good improvement. Even it's not quite going to be what they wanted though, so still 5 seconds out, but this looks like the lap where they are really pushing here. It's going to be on full force. But you can see how much understeer and how much you're having to fight the cars in these scenarios. Larson just barely keeping it together through the back straight there. No DRS, of course. No DRS to be spoken of whatsoever. And a real battle to keep it together as a lap continues. You can hear the screeching, the understeer. And it's a fight. It is absolutely a fight to keep these cars just under a baseline level of control, really. So he's scampering over Seka. I think it looks like they're blocking Lapalainen on a lap there. And oh, so he just goes really too much on the throttle. That's going to get them really bent out of shape and looking uncomfortable there. And they are going to have to get a move on fast. 4:30 left in the session. Rain is still coming down. And they do have to think about making that judgment call. You have to ask, is it really the right move to go for this? No amount of slick tire, no matter how amount of heat, it's going to overtake the fact that it's still wet out there. You aren't getting any grip as Franklin comes through. First to break into the 132s on the inters. It's going to be a 0.988 for the Aston Martin. That is going to be both Astons up in P1 and P2. Cook might be looking to challenge that. Jackson goes to 133.3. Getting right up there with the top split of the fields. Really proving their worth on this one. So can Cook make a challenge? It's 4/10 behind lead. Don't know if they're going to be able to make it, but it looks like they're on pace. So yeah, I see drivers left and right, so maybe conceding a little bit of space, conceding their place on track to let the qualifier go through. It's going to be a very good time from Cook, made up a lot of time, seemingly in that final sector. It's a 133.0, and that is enough for P2 in separating the Aston Martins.
I'm back. Sorry about that. Yes, we're running down to the absolute crunch time at the moment. So, as the rain stopped, of course, and well, the rain's just started to come down completely hard where I am right now. So I'm out of breath at the moment. So I had to go fire up the generator because I lost my electricity. But I'm back. Ben's got it covered. Let me catch my breath.
And as you do that, so we're going to be on board with Bashford right now, seeing how they managed to do. They are on very good pace, as they're almost at parity with the top end of the field here. So really absolutely gunning it through, they say, the tight and winding section coming up. They're going to have to be very careful. Going to have to balance their car, almost have to hop it over some of these curbs, as they say, I have been artificially paid with the...
There's Aston Martin completely bended at the fence.
Was that Franklin out?
I think it was.
It's another car out of the running. Bashford, not the cleanest underbridge section, managing to get it through, but losing a couple tenths in the process. The question is, can they make it back up? DRS has officially opened, so if that is a sign to get your car out on track and get yourself onto those slick tires, if that's not a sign, I don't know what is. A lot of drivers have switched over to the slick rubber. Bashford, it has no choice but to stick to his guns. He's not going to make it round in time, but it's enough for P3 in that Alfa Romeo, and regardless of what the soft runners do, that is a great place to be with the clock ticking down.
This is absolutely it right now. If you can manage to keep it out of the fence and put the fastest lap time in, definitely with this track drying out as much as possible, you could get yourself a pole. It's down about 1/10 separating the top 5 or 3 or so. Who wants it? It's up for grabs. This once again could be a surprise moment for anybody you don't usually see getting qualifying positions here at the top. For pole could steal this one away just by being the last across the line and out of the wall.
But like, I think this is where the soft tires really come into their own. We're on board with Caston right now, 1.1 seconds down just on the first sector. There is no way that we're not about to see a massive slick tire sweep through the grid, and any second now we're going to see those times start to peel through. So Caston 1.3 up on this sector as well, and they are really absolutely gunning it. Full DRS, full slick tires, making absolutely full use of it.
I was going to say, because now you got the DRS down this main long straight. You didn't have it before. So that all of a sudden you're up to, what, a 350 kilometer an hour speed than when before you're doing 325s without the DRS. So, yes, I expect half a second shaved easily here. But everybody else behind going quicker. So there it is. That's 1.5 seconds quicker. But we do have Emar going quicker. We have everybody still behind, getting some pace here. Once again, I did say this didn't ban last across the line. Hopefully, it should be the fastest.
Yes, everyone's out on track now, seeing what they can bring to the table. I say him out. Unfortunately, a little error there with the naming. Erlinghauser coming through with the 131.377, bringing the absolute heat. Emir's going to have the DRS on this next section, and yeah, they don't have to worry about losing their confidence in the car. They don't have the understeer. They've got the grip. They've got the DRS. It's a no-brainer that people are going to bring the absolute A game. Is there's a 128 from what's there?
And E2's going even quicker. E2 lap of line, and he's going quicker. And once again, there is the Emar's time up there at the moment there, but E2's gone quicker in the second sector. We'll see if E2 can actually pull it off here as well. And not to mention, well, have to go for Mr. Cassidy. He's, oh, no, he didn't actually make a little bit of a mistake, but he's 2 tenths off. But Mr. Casson again's going quicker. Larson's going quicker. Everybody's going quicker if you can keep it on the track. Look at that. You've got to be gaining at least within a second right now if you at least want to be in the top 5.
Yes, a minimum it's going to be, as everything has sort of come together. And Casson coming through 128.001. Great work there from them. And say last few drivers out on track now. And it is going to be, say, Bashford, say, last on to set a time here.
I believe he's invalidated.
He's on invalidation. He's on the inters. And really, I just feel he maybe missed the boat there.
Absolutely missed the boat. Well, unfortunately, the boat's already sailed, hasn't it? Because it's dry. That's one. For you. Did you even plan that one? It is what it is. I think that's it right now. Qualifying's over because Joshua can't improve. So, yep. There it is. And that was a massive spread, isn't it? Really, if you look at that, the drivers that elected not to change over. The fastest of the Inter runners was Leo Erlingheiser. He was the fastest of the Inters. Everybody else is on softs.
Yeah, we're really seeing 2 grids start to form there. Say the soft runners and then the intermediate runners. And to think Erlingheiser starting off so strong and then looking to have that lead. And then we just saw the 128s come pouring in as everything went full dry. But there you go. That is, my mistake. It looks like there is some minor naming errors, as that is Bilbas in the McLaren, not as we thought. And say Amir in the Alpha Tauri, and then say Johnny 360, John Foss in the Aston Martin. But there you go. You can see the rest of the runners on screen, and we are about to head, folks, into our final sprint race of the season. Now, tell me, Dean, any predictions?
You always ask me to do these predictions, don't you?
I want to see where your head's at.
Well, I'd say Bilbas in the McLaren, because he looked solidly quick all the way through this qualifying session. Even before on the Inters, he had the pace. He had the pace on the soft tires. And remember, because we're going now into that first lap, 10-lap sprint, you're not going to get that DRS for the first few laps. So if he can get a lead out there, pull the lead out there and maintain that, I think it's his sprint race to win. How about yourself there, Ben?
Yeah, and fundamentally different strategies got to be played here, because it is a sprint race. It is a completely different challenge. So a lot of drivers like to play a bit of the longer game. That doesn't exist here. It's pace, pace, and more pace. So in terms of prediction...
And rain, and no rain, unfortunately. I think it's actually going to dry up. So it's the opposite of where I am at the moment, where it was dry. Now going into wet, I'm actually a little bit soaked at the moment for running in the rain.
Absolutely pouring where I am right now.
Oh, is it? I say you got that. Well, we're bringing the rain down. So I was the one that usually brings the rain dance to these events in SwiftX, my friend. It's you now, Benjamin, that's doing the rain dances.
But we are waiting now. We're just waiting to get in.
Of course, Jack out there. Jordan Farmer. Anybody else? Say hello. Of course, don't forget, sign up for your NordVPN services. There's free services you can sign up for NordVPN, of course, and don't forget Digital Motorsports. And we got Zifod in partnership with GridFinder, which you can find drivers and casters and producers and everything else, and CosAnimeDesigns too, for putting all those gizmos all over your racing gear, racing rigs, even microphones if you want.
Here's all your needs. You can find them right there. Of course, great shout. Thank you to everyone who makes SwiftX possible as we head to the final 4 rounds of the season. Now,
Jack still hasn't got his food yet. Jack, there's a bit of a lineup, my friend, because everybody's now gone to the food vendors because they're not trackside at the moment watching the qualifying anymore. They're waiting to get their food, so you have to line up. I feel for you, my friend.
So we are just checking on how things are at the track now. Some minor delays coming through, but we should be with the racing in a very short moment. Just
I got a bit of a scare moment at the moment because there's a cat sticking its head through the window outside, staring at me right now, wondering what I'm doing. You didn't see it in the casting box with me, Ben. It just poked its head up there and said, hello.
Well, I was checking in
hello.
with race control, seeing what was going on with the race. And there we are, looks the timers are coming down. We are ready to go.
Welcome to Miami. I'm heading down to the beach after this race, mate. So I hope you bring your bathing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
brought me trunks,
Brought your trunks, so there.
and life is good.
The formation lap gets underway ahead of today's sprint. It's going to be interesting to see who
So I've
gets
checked out
pole
those tyre strategies at the moment, mate. Softs and mediums, of course, because this is the softs about to say the first time, but they did actually use some of their softs earlier for the qualifying. Interesting strategy, you think, because it's a 10-lap sprint. Do you think those soft tyres are going to fall off the cliff?
I think a lot of them are banking on falling off the cliff. They say banking on, they say those softs get in the early charge, but the mediums start to come into their own later on. I think Miami is one to be a little bit more punishing on the tyres in the car, especially those very technical sections. And I think that's what the medium runners at least are banking on.
Yeah, I think those soft runners might be, give or take, unless they're using a fresh set of softs. If they're using one set of softs from qualifying, then they're maybe about 7% worn. But we won't know, of course, until they get ready. For those lights to go out here in the party town of South Florida, over to you, Ben.
And we are ready to go, and you can see the tree lighting up. Say 5 red lights, trackers live, and we are away. It looks like a great getaway from Bilbas in the McLaren, as well as a little bit of fighting down the bottom end of the pack. Amir gets a great getaway also, and is going to be claiming their spot. There you got Johnny Foss taking that P3 and to guarding it from Tanaka, so fighting up the field, as it looks like Jackson is all the way down at the bottom end of the field and looks to be having their own little squabble down here. Say side by side starting to come through. That looks like Kloss, Erlinghauser and Larson all together in a little bit of a fight for that mid pack. Nobody is giving each other an inch, and more importantly though, they're keeping it respectful. We haven't seen any taps, any punts. Jackson dropping behind in a big way, however. Not really sure what's going on there. Haven't got a visual on his car, but maybe lost the rear a little bit. So dropping right down to P17, even yielding to his teammate. Oh, that does look like end plate damage from the Williams.
I'd say absolutely end plate damage at the moment because he's fighting side by side, but with the Mercedes of Luke Tembinkel, and then there's another spinner, and that's Larson. Larson's gone into the fence, and he's still on the. It doesn't look like he even got too much damage on that car. So somehow the Alfa Romeo have survived.
So managed to keep it
AJ.
together.
Yeah, ooh, there's a bit of contact too between the Red Bull, I think, but yeah, further back, that's just keeping an eye on that backfield there for you there, Bert.
So taking on board with Erlinghauser now, managed to get a little bit of space to themselves. Things have started to balance out a fair bit. I think we are seeing everyone start to form into a couple of their grids. The majority of the medium runners, and in fact, the majority of the grid is mediums, but more importantly, those medium runners are all near the back of the field with the exception of Larson. So you've got people like Bilbas, Amir, and Foss all the way at the sharp end, using those soft tyres to get away from the field while they can do it. But they will start to see some drop-offs in due time.
And Emar, of course, there, the flying Finn, the flying Dane, is really putting a bit of pressure on the back of that McLaren right now. He's not going to have the DRS just yet, but he is definitely in that slipstream, just waiting his time until he gets that letterbox open and gets about 15 kilometers an hour more speed down that back long straightaway between 16 and 17, which I'm sure he'll be waiting for very soon.
It's all about biding their time here. So they don't have DRS at their disposal just yet. So he's just seeing if he can keep within that threshold until he does, and that is when the climbing starts to happen. Strategic plays is what it's all about here. Can't be affording to waste the time getting ahead only to have to concede it again.
Also, great midfield squabble there for 9th and 10th. Lenny's in the mix there. Leon's in the mix. They're going for it tooth and nail. You can see that's the fastest lap, but very soon this will be the lap that DRS will be activated on soon.
And you can see as they got De Boer and Erlinghauser fighting it out right now. It's become a three-way battle for 7th place. Erlinghauser had a good overtake on the start, finished straight on De Boer, but very soon Franklin's going to get in on the mix. As you can see, that Aston Martin just lying in wait, preying on their opponents. They're putting a bit of pressure on. They have the soft tyres, so they have the compound advantage, but they're being held up by the two medium runners. He's just waiting to use it. He's alongside De Boer, has a good run here, taking it side by side, going to have the inside on the next corner. Most importantly, really flex that advantage, and even with DRS for the both of them, it's not going to be enough, as Franklin is going to be up into the higher position and is immediately going to be taking a bit of pressure to the Red Bull.
And Amir just got past on that long straightaway with the DRS activated there of Bilbas, so that's himself back up into P1 after his little short retirement. He's exactly stepping up to where he left off before, didn't he? Once again, as you mentioned, the battle is still brewing up in the middle of the field here and also at the back of the field. So every single way, but obviously that DRS and E2, I think there at the moment has made a little bit of a move there on the medium runners, of course, there. And he's got Leon, he's got Thomas for company there.
Yeah, so him and Thomas are coming right up close to each other. Going to have a bit the DRS on the Alpine, who is going to go defensive onto the inside, trying keeping an arm's length from the Haas. It's going to be working for the time being, but that is going to be Larson. Is that a retirement or a crash? Oh no, that's a full safety car. That is a full safety car being deployed.
Pit lane entrance, and now you wouldn't want a box, would you? Because they're all bunched up. Pit stop around here costs you 20 seconds. It is a 15-second gap all the way down to P16, where Peter Locke is. So you box now, you're last.
Yeah, you can't afford to box, to say, nor can you really have an opportunity to. This is the sprint race, so this is really a problem for a lot of the drivers in some ways, but in others, it might be a Hail Mary.
Well, exactly what it does right now for those soft runners there, Benjamin, they get a little bit more breathing space on these tires, don't they? Because they don't have to chew through them as much. I mean, Emar leading this race at the moment, his tires are probably looking around 22%, so they're okay. Means you're going to have a couple of laps around a safety car, you're going to be able to take care of those boots, and you'll be just fine to take them to the end. I don't think you're going to be on a massive attack on those mediums, as you would have been if we would have been full green condition.
Yeah, so he doesn't quite have to make as many compromises and potentially scupper his later race strategy. So a safety car, in a lot of ways, for a lot of the drivers, as I say, for the back end of the field, it's a great chance to catch up. And then at the sharp end of the field, to those running on soft, it gives them a little bit of breathing room to really push when the stint gets back underway.
I wonder now if the McLaren driver of Bilbas is going to be able to put that fight back to Emar and resume the lead of this race that he had from his pole position as they catch the safety car right now, which will be our Mercedes safety car here in this evening for Miami GP. Miami first sprint race, of course, and then we have a feature race coming up after this. 10 laps is all you get, and we're halfway through.
There you go. That is the pit lane being stacked up with the back end of the field. You can see everyone who was on the mediums at the bottom end has now switched over to the softs. They're thinking the exact same thing as we are. Even if they are used softs from qualifying, they still have plenty of life in them, or at least enough life to see out the end through the safety car period.
Now, Benjamin, just to let you know, if you can see the pictures, see those boats there and that tiny little lake? How did they get them in there? That's around 6, 7, and 8, and 9. I'm just curious on how they managed to get them in there. Because that's, I didn't see any entrance or exit there and you're a little bit in from the coast here in Miami, so you're not right next to the
I imagine it might have taken local boat owners a bit of, we'll say, encouragement.
I'll probably just show boats, no doubt. That's what they do there for plenty of the activities that you do around this party town here in Miami. That's what you do. We're going to be partying, of course, after. Who's going to be partying more than anybody else? Podiums and race wins.
And that is the question. Who is going to be the star of the party? Sprint race might help to show us, but it's the feature race. The big boy, the real deal. where we get to decide. As it stands now, halfway through the race, full safety car conditions, and the pack has all jumped up to within, say, seconds of each other.
A lot of Australian flags we just saw around that corner as well. 2 US flags, of course, no doubt, but a couple of Aussie flags. I'm thinking, well, I'm a little bit unfortunate because there's no Australians racing in SwiftX for me to be patriotic about.
Time will come. Time will come, my friend.
We may very well have 2 Australians in the Formula One grid next season if Mr. Sargent doesn't get his license, racing license there to be able to compete. He needs I think he needs a certain thing in the F2 championship last race, of course, in order to get it. Otherwise, we will have Mr. Doohan racing alongside Oscar. 2 Aussies in Formula One. Wow.
Imagine. Well, let's see what goes there. I think, say, Sargent recently did get an extra super license point because he completed 100 laps in an F1 car thanks to the Williams team. So we'll have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, it's based on his F2 place. But that's that race. This is our race, of course, the SwiftX. And it's the race for Emar to come back out of his short retirement and win the first sprint race. Or can he be denied there by the McLaren? You never know what's going to happen anywhere down the field as well, too, because the Aston Martins could do something about it. Mercedes. It's crucial for the Mercedes, of course, no doubt there. Jasper Ten Haken, because he obviously leading the championship as well. And obviously very close battle too in the constructors.
Well, as we can see, say, Amir's coming back and it's looking like he never left, in all honesty. But that being said, McLaren of Bilbas has really kept him honestly, throughout this entire session, from qualifying all the way to now. It's kept him on their toes, certainly given him a challenge.
A bit of rain lurking in the background as well too, but I don't think we're going to have enough time to see it. I think they've had enough of the early rain. You never know what's going to happen when it comes to race day, of course, for the feature race. But the safety car will peel in, and then we're going to have a nice sprint. It means no DRS once again there, Benjamin, for a couple of laps.
It's going to go. Drivers are back up to race speed. Mir gets the pace of the race going right away, but doesn't manage to catch anyone off guard. Say, Kazen and Foss are right on their heels. Say, Bilbas is shortly after, immediately keeping that pressure tight to the AlphaTauri as everyone starts to splay out a bit further down on the field. You got Franklin, who is trying to get a move done. You can see from the air helicopter shot, trying to get a move done and see where they can get away with getting around Erlinghauser. Opted not to pit, staying on the mediums, squeezed to the outside as the superior speed of the Aston Martin just shows itself with those Red Bull tyres. Erlinghauser's not going to give up yet. He's still side by side with the British Racing Green. Manages to get back up ahead, in fact. Really gunning it down the straight there and managing to reassert that position. Tight margin to go. Say, Cook and De Boer just behind, fighting out with each other side by side. It's going to be Cook coming out on top for that one. So you really have to make your moves done by this section, because there's no way you're having too wide through and under the bridge there. Absolutely no way.
It is possible. Cars are 2 meters wide. I mean, the castle section's just over 7 meters wide, so it's possible to get 3 cars through there, but good luck at the speeds that you're going to have to put them through there. That, never say never to Mr. Ben.
Ooh, but saying that, Ito very close to losing it. Just about manages to catch it, but not without some concessions, as that is going to be them dropping up behind Tim Brinker and having to drag race to lose yet another position from AJ Jackson. And that's the Haas down to P14.
Now, the soft runner versus, there's Leon coming under attack there from the Aston Martin. That's a battle for P6 currently at the moment. That's brewing up. Now, the soft tires going to have a little bit more traction, but they are getting close to about 35% at the moment. As you get into your 40s, you might feel a little bit of track difference there. The traction difference between those mediums. So attack now, I'd say. If you can't afford to wait, you've got a couple laps to go anyway.
He really has not got any time to be worrying about say those last few laps. They just need to get track position and then defend it. It's easier to defend from behind than to attack up ahead. So he needs to get this sorted.
Oh, Noah and E2 as well. But I was going to say, side by side, Noah and E2. They had a spin, but you might as well keep an eye on that battle at the moment that you're looking at, Luke.
You can hear them. It's like almost wheel spinning. So gunning it out through the final back straight. So getting that speed, the draft. 206 miles an hour is going to be thrown down the inside. Just about holding it together. Looks like a tiny bit of lock on the wheels. But it's just going to be enough. The bravery is all it took for Franklin to get up into P6 and put those softs to good use.
Well, now, if I was Leon, I would just basically sit back and try to stay within that DRS range, because he's got to be able to use it on that back straight soon, because DRS is enabled in this lap. And you can see at the moment there how much of a gain already that the Aston Martin has done, trying to break that slipstream. Bilbas is still not doing too much about that P2, about Emar. He must just be maintaining. Emar's always got the fastest first sector as well too on this lap.
Yeah, he is. So Bilbas is trying to keep it on the rear of Emir here, but it's not quite panning out. So running a little bit wide up ahead, that AlphaTauri is. But it is still, it's just placing their car right where it's annoying. As we see, someone has gone out just behind. That looks like, yeah, Peter Locke looks like they have gone off track, and that is a yellow.
Bilbas can make a run here. Flat out said, DRSs could be one of the last times he can get it done. Emar can't put too much of a fight about that, because that DRS is almighty and powerful. But Emar knows he's going to get it back on the next lap if he can stay within it, and has, whether or not the McLaren driver, has he burnt all his energy? Is he going to harvest enough energy to defend back in the lead of this race after starting on pole?
Yes, right now, final lap, knows what's on the line, knows the strategic options he has, so I would not be surprised if that might even have been deliberate. Because if he got the DRS for the retake and then can deny that challenge in the final sector, then that's a lot more confirmed of a win than being up front and being challenged from the DRS the whole way.
I think you're right. It's going to be clever about the DRS and the aeros management right now. On the last lap of our first sprint race for our final sprint race of the series. There it is. He's racing multiple times, and here it is. Emar's making a run early. And that's interesting before you go into the crazy S, as I like to call it. That's the... And he's going to get through there, and then he's going to follow all the way through 13, 14, 15. Now, it's all about the exit out of 16. Bilbans needs to get a great exit out of 16, get the ERS and see if he can DRS and see if he can take it back now.
But Bilbas didn't get the exit he needed, just a little bit of squirreliness under the throttle, and that's going to be all he needs to drop that gap to over half a second. He's going to go to the inside, try and defend. Voss is going to be on the behind, though. Isn't going to have that same gapping. But as we come round, final corner, Emir goes wide, taps the wall in the dying seconds. It's going to be a drag race to the line. They're right neck and neck, and it's going to be Emir taking the checkered flag for the Miami Grand Prix sprint. Almost down to the centimetre. And as all of them line up together, that is going to be... Well, that was a nail-biter.
That was an absolute nail-biter. A little bit of a mistake towards... I thought it looked like Emar had that one there as he covered him off down the back straight. But a 44 thousandths of a second, as you mentioned, that close. Bilbas just slipped that race win through his fingers after starting on pole. But he does take second in the sprint race.
And what a drive was. We see right there, let's say, Korsgaard making some quiet advances in the background, enough for a driver of the day as voted by the game. But you can see as they are lapping down below us, Emir takes the checkered flag here at the Miami Sprint for 8 points. And then, say, the McLaren of Bilbas. And to say, it was almost the exact same order, I'm finding, as qualifying. As you can see right here, out on the screen, as everyone placing here. And say Jasper Tenaken in 4th, E2 Lebanon all the way down in P14. Another driver that we wanted to keep eyes on, as I say, really falling down the order. Let's hope that they can bring it back together in the feature. But that finale, we need to talk about that finale right down to the wire, because Emir effectively had it in the bag. But at the end, I don't know what happened. Maybe it was the pressure. Maybe it was simply just miscalculation. But he tapped the wall on that final corner.
Well, yeah, but, you know, as race drivers will say, the wall tapped me, Ben. I didn't tap the wall tapped me. But yeah, you're right. He did get the fastest lap as well on that one. So he had some pace once he eventually got past the McLaren. And well, it's interesting too in that in the championship, of course, there for the constructors, because Mercedes did manage to get a point, but nothing for Ferrari. Good day for Aston Martin, and Haas, bad day for Williams. None of them inside the top 10 at all.
Yes, crucially, and say the sprint race, top 8 is really where it matters, because it's only up to 8 points.
That's right.
For those top 8 positions of the sprint. So definitely some big winners and losers. Speaking of winners, though, we get to talk to a familiar face who has joined us here, and hopefully joining us for the rest of the split. It's good to have you back, man. It's good to have you back. How you feeling?
I am shaking. I didn't expect to be on top already after such a long break. And the photo finish at the end, it really got me shaken up after the race. I couldn't even type to the guy after to tell him GG, nice racing. But yeah.
That was interesting on that last one, because usually a lot of people time for their overtakes down the back straight between 16 and 17, but you got the overtake done before the S's of 11. So why that decision?
Because that corner, one of the penultimate corner, I always locked up, so I didn't trust myself to get the move done there. I also yeah.
And did you lock up there? Because you made a little bit of a mistake where you guys went side by side across the line. You got it by 44 thousandths of a second. So once again, that's turn 17. That's your Achilles heel around here in Miami. Is that the case?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, you're still back on top, aren't you, there? So you haven't really gone anywhere from your short retirement anymore, and you also got the fastest lap as well?
Yeah, I'm going for the championship again. If Jasper makes a mistake, I think I still have a chance at it. But if not, GG's to Jasper.
Oh, that's the thing. So you come back, showed him who's boss, almost as if you never really left. Now, was there a retirement from the series or from the game entirely, if I can ask?
Well, in the beginning, it was retirement from the game. I needed a big break from it because I've been going at it for 1 year, practicing every day, and just needed a big break. I didn't expect for me to come back this fast. I was wondering for 2023 I'll be back, but I think I missed the thrill of racing.
And that's really what it is, I think. It's just racing there's something about it. There is just something about it. It's like you almost can't keep away. No matter what you try, what you say to yourself, it's like, okay, I swear I won't touch it. And then you're in your brain, you're immediately like, damn, I just thought of a way I could save time.
Yeah, exactly. I think racing is a special thing, and I'm very glad I can enjoy the thrill of it. I think it's not as popular as people. I mean, in video games, it's not as popular as other games, and I think if everyone tried racing and learned racing, they would enjoy it as much as we all do.
And do you use those NordVPNs? I mean, you're in Denmark, so
of
you
course.
use those NordVPNs to check out some of the America stuff. Well, you're in Miami at the moment, mate, so you don't need to use a VPN here, but
I'm using it for Netflix to,
you know
what? Yeah, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, good show. Can't watch it in Denmark, not the newest seasons, anyways. So.
And just real quick, if I was to switch over to Denmark, is there any great show I could watch there?
I'm not
recommend.
I'm not sure if there's any Danish specific shows in Denmark, but it's worth checking out if there are some.
I will do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll let you get back to your team there and start preparing for the race. Now, rain or not, how are you going to feel about that? Because there's a very high chance you're going to get some rain here, perhaps for the feature race, Miami.
I hope there's rain, so I'm not as stressed out because I think I am fast in the rain.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much, Sir Benjamin. Any other words there before we let him go?
All good. No, say good to have you back. Looking forward to the feature race.
Yep, same.
Thank you very much, mate. Well, there you go. That is Mir Drukovic back on the scene, folks. The champion from early season has come back to make sure that, okay, someone's challenging for the title. I'm going to come back and make sure it's not that simple.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to be that easy then for Jasper Ten Haken, is it? Because now he's got a title fight on his hands again that he's been having at the start of the season.
I can't help but feel he's got a little bit of mixed feelings to say. Great to have a friend back in the league, but also, dang it, no easy. I say no easy strides up to the top. And I mean, we had competitors who make sure of that anyway, but the main championship protagonist, who we thought that was out of the picture, might make things that little bit smoother, suddenly come back and with something to prove.
Yeah, I was just trying to think who was the last person that stepped out of retirement and kind of come back in and dominated a sport. I haven't really had anybody, haven't we? Maybe some Michael Schumacher, of course, come back there and couldn't really dominate because it was a different car at that point, obviously from the Mercedes.
Yeah,
that's
different cars, but small breaks like this, sometimes I even find you come back better than you were. Sometimes having that break is really what you need to, say, commit some improvements to memory, commit some, say, just general rate, something about having a break. And this can say, we'll speak for any league racing or even other sports, other titles, is a break sometimes leaves you coming back stronger. So you can approach it fresh, you can almost dump off a little bit your bad habits where you were playing before last time. So that is the big thing on everyone's minds. Now we are going to be taking a break, as we tend to do. Of course, that was the short qualifying, that was the sprint race, so you can join us in half an hour's time for the full feature race, all the points on the line, all the egos on the line, and the championship potentially coming into the balance. One, two, three, four, five. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here back once again. So here for the feature race of the SwiftX Miami Grand Prix, powered by NordVPN. Of course, great sponsors, great to have them on board. Round 13 of 16 here in the SwiftX Championship Series. First season, great opening season, and as we take it to the newest addition to the F1 calendar, say 19 turns around the Hard Rock Stadium, 3.362 miles, 3 DRS zones, and looking at the track ahead, so very little in terms of undulation, but certainly some very technical sections. And as we look forward to the race as it's about to get underway, I'm of course joined by Dean Biggles in the commentary box, and it's looking fairly sunny. A stark contrast from qualifying.
Yeah, right, Ben. That looks like the typical South Beach Miami event. Weather you would like to have, of course. We heard from a couple of drivers before. Obviously, we heard from Emar, who did wrap up the sprint race there as well too. That he didn't really mind if he had a bit of wet weather conditions there, but he's back, of course, and that's a little bit of a threat, no doubt, to our championship leader at the moment, Jasper Ten Hacken. And we forgot to mention as well too. This is a pretty high lap distance you take around here. Is at 72% of your full throttle, so it's fast and furious. And we did see a lot of fast and furious action, didn't we, before in the sprints when they were just tooth and nail side by side, a lot of locations. The main straightaway, isn't it? That one from 16 to 17. That's the long straightaway. That's a lot of those overtaken opportunities, but we were really surprised where, I mean, even the confidence we heard from Emar saying that he wasn't confident into turn 17. That's that hairpin before you go on 18, 19 and cross the line to start another lap.
Yes, and that really is one thing that I wanted to take a look at, and it's just the confidence levels, because it is a very fast circuit on the whole, but it's very much interspersed by extremely slow, extremely technical sections. It's like you've got two basically straights right next to each other, and then you've got the entire under the bridge section leading into sector 3. So the confidence in the car has to be at that all-time high.
It's a freeway, Ben. It's a bridge, but it's a freeway, of course. And I don't know if you've ever been on the traffic in Miami, mate, and it can get jam-packed. Not as bad as Los Angeles or some other cities, but don't let's worry about it at the moment. The traffic that you're going to have is going to be those cars on this track, and they're going to have to do it for 30 laps to the best of their abilities. Mandatory pit stops. Tires, as you can see, hards and mediums are the choice of the black stuff that sticks to the track here this evening.
Yeah, so going to be going for a long distance. I imagine, say, the one-stop strategy does play into everyone's favor here, but as we have the tree lighting up any second now, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Track is live, and we are away, and it looks like Mir is on fine form once again, looking to keep that point proven with the start of the race here. And Bilbas is up out ahead, but De Boer immediately dropping down to the bottom of the field. I think that's an early collision, and just like that, we have gone one corner, and it's a VSC as Jackson, missing a front wing, is going to be limping straight back to the pits, and we just started here.
Yes, but that's what you expect, isn't it? Everybody's trying to go into those tight turns at the start there, turn 1, 2, and 3, followed by, naturally, these ones at the moment. Virtual safety car, so should get ready back into speed, but yes. So AJ losing 5, but big gainers, of course, ET Lavaline in there, and Noah getting 4 positions for 11 from 12, but no changes in the top 7.
Yeah, and it is looking like, at least for the start here, drivers are going to have to be trying to work the best magic they can as a means to get some space on the track. Even onto the VSC, you can sort of tweak the times a little bit. You can really run to the edge of that required delta. So, as we've seen some of the drivers do here, they are running close, and they just need to keep that space on track. And say, even though it's under VSC, Bilbas is giving it full aggression, but we're out of VSC now. Track has been cleared, and drivers are on full tilt once again. As it's looking like another drag race between Emir and Bilbas here, side by side. Say, not quite the Ferrari return that Emir, I imagine, was expecting, but it's still certainly getting a run for his money at the top end.
Pit lane's busy with a couple of those drivers missing some end plates and crucial downforce components, so they're going to get in and out there, change up their strategy, and see if they can come back into this race. As you see, Bilbus did make a little bit of a run there, but Ema shut the door on him pretty quickly. Jasper Hacken, P4. Keep an eye out for him. It's in second championship. You can't afford to let that AlphaTauri get too far, and he let that AlphaTauri win the race, if anything. Needs to get past.
There we are. So timing's now up on the screen and all working. So going to hop on board with Bashford, as it looks to be P8 as it stands, and some fighting either side. Now, Cook and Erlinghauser might be going at it together, but I see Bashford is somewhat biding their time. They got another lap still until DRS kicks in. If they can work on making those mediums work to their liking, maybe avoiding a little bit of the fighting up ahead, keeping them to themselves, then they could potentially see a little bit of gain on their half. Franklin, only car on track right now to be going on the soft compound after going to the pits on lap 2. Maybe involved in that early incident, but they've got a lot of time to make up. So I can see why the soft rubber might have been the way to go.
Not a bad idea, as you see E2 on maximum, making the Haas, making a run down that long straightaway, of course. Getting the job done. Yeah, probably praying a little bit of a safety car on that one. I mean, AJ is experiencing some sort of technical issues inside that car at the moment. Not quite sure if he can get that resolved. He's had that before in the past, hasn't he? Lately, he's had a lucky break, but not today so far.
Yeah,
currently running a P17.
It really doesn't seem to be luck on his side. Didn't really get that exit they wanted out of turn 1, as they seem to be rejoining the lobby, trying to get whatever issue it is resolved. It's a yellow in the first sector for a split second there.
Kosgard's had a spin at the moment. He's got to try to keep it. Very hard. Remember, not a very good turning circle on these cars. And that's him dropped down into P14 currently at the moment. But still, looks like all the crucial components are attached to the car.
Yeah, so managing to keep it out of trouble, at least for the time being. But one that is trouble is Erlinghauser from the sister team of the Bulls. It's going to be Lenny Cook coming out on the outside, getting the superior run with the DRS and the tyre advantage. It's going to be sweeping themselves effortlessly into P6 for now. Now, can they keep that momentum up? Because Hardwick is up ahead and the highest runner on the hard tyre. They're going to have DRS to their advantage, but as is Hardwick here, as I think we're coming past the detection point any second now. We are just within that second threshold. Oh no, say Hardwick is not within that second threshold. They drop back, and you can see Cook is trying to close it, but it's not quite going to be just yet.
And down to P14, so the Aston Martin's managed to gain that position, and Joshua Bashford, I think, has gone around somewhere as well, too. In P16, he's dropped a couple of places.
Yeah, that might
those
be.
medium runners obviously making use of those tyres. Lenny Cook, of course, going to take it to Thomas Hardwick and make use of those tyres what you can. They're about 12%, give or take, at the moment, the medium, so they've got a few more laps up their sleeves, easy peasy for now, but we know they're just going to switch around from the mediums and the hards come into play a little bit later on. Noah putting a bit of pressure on the maximum plus as well. That's a hard running battle between them two. Bilbus is outside the DRS range as Emar pulls a little bit more of a gap.
And it is a gap that is trying to pull at the moment. Say mere 1.5 seconds ahead. Bilbas second ahead of Fossils, and it is just trying to get that spacing between yourselves and other drivers. One who hasn't got been so lucky is Kloss, as Ilakorpi is going to be running on the inside in that Ferrari, and is going to be just sweeping it through, so almost effortlessly so. So getting that DRS, getting the speed advantage, and just coaxing that car right through, and almost looked, I'm going to say, pretty easily done there. Kloss might be going for the counter-attack, though, so I wouldn't rest so easy.
I always say taking candy from a baby. Check out Mr. Lenny Cook now. Down the main straightaway, the back straightaway. He's going to make that car stick in time. I don't think he has, because immediately coming back there, Thomas said, not on my watch. And covers off that corner at the moment, P5. Remember, on the hard tyres, doing a solid job. How long can he hold up against a medium runner? As now, Lenny makes another run.
It's just going to be... This time he is just about going to make it work, though. Getting the AlphaTauri so close to the front of Hardwick, but it is managing to stick. And you can see he's trying all his might, looking around to see what he can accomplish. And he doesn't want to burn too many resources, but he might just have to, especially with the DRS zone coming up and the potential to lose out on the big queue that is up ahead of them.
And Belbin, they got the DRS trade at the moment behind Emar because they've all within the top 4 from that DRS, and then of course that battle that you're seeing there between Lenny and Thomas, they're just a little bit, couple of seconds down the road from that top 4 battle. Thomas's chance to try to do something about this one once again now is approaching out of the corner 16 and down the main straightaway. You want to get a perfect exit out of here if you're Thomas, and then hit the loud pedals, loud as you possibly can, and then activate that letterbox, get some speed up into 6th gear, 7th gear, 8th gear in a second, bang, deploy a little bit of ERS, get your DRS open. Will it be too far back to take it? Will.
Just not quite going to be enough, and I think that this point might be thinking about the longer game, the longer strategy. Say Larson managing to get a move on Kloss just further behind there. It's going to be them up into P10, out for Romeo, up into the points.
Good to see lap of 29, 6 of 29. So far so good, just one retirement. And of course that early virtual safety car of course, but seeing all the other action that's occurring on our fantastic track. Round 13, of course, as we're getting closer and closer to the business end of the championship, sponsored by NordVPN.
Yeah, we'll say on board with
yellow. I think it's Joshua.
Ooh, and it looks like
Joshua's had a bit of a moment.
Yes, and that is going to be just the entrance of the pits, luckily. So managing to do a little bit of damage at control. But still, that's going to be enough for the virtual safety car to come out. Second time so far here in Miami. And I think it's a little...
the front wing that's missing.
And I think you can't help but feel a little bit frustrated if I'm one of the other drivers. There you go, that's fresh front wing coming on there. An extra 5 seconds on your pit stop. But if you're in the position that Bashford did, it does not really matter.
Yeah. Johnny, at the moment, he was starting to build up the gap there. He's got to wait for that virtual safety car to end to try to beat on Bilbus. It's all about timing it perfectly as well, too, because if you do go outside your delta, you get slapped with that 5-second penalty.
See, it looks like Tanakan is going to be going into the pits now as well. You know, really? Interesting turns of events, considering they have such good track position, and so is Cook. Are they making a gamble on their tyres, perhaps?
I'd say so. Hard tyres for both, so straight to the for the end of the race then, possibly if you want.
I'll say the green flag is now officially out. Tanakan and Cook coming out P11 and P12, it looks like. Korsgaard is just being on the heels of them when they come out in theory, but the track is ready to go once again, and DRS is immediately coming out of the wings and coming out in full force.
Check out Peter Locke as well there, mate. Fred, bang on Maximum Kloss there. It was good. I saw a little bit. Maximum Kloss made a little bit of an error coming one of the corners, high-speed corners there, and just lost a lot of speed, scrubbed it off there, and that is the Red Bull currently up in a P9 now.
What a move it was. I say the Red Bull's doing very well this round overall. So I think the highest aggregate positioning of any team so far. They've got Erlinghauser up in P5, and then you've got Locke up in P9, and looks to be making a charge vertically upwards as well. So Erlinghauser kind of stuck in a little bit of a rut here. Doesn't have the DRS to catch up to Hardwick, but as it stands, they're both looking like they're on very good form.
Good form. That's what you want. Exactly. Nothing's happening too much at the business end at the moment. A couple of warnings are starting to creep in there for the drivers for a little bit of corner cutting. Of course, you're allowed 2 of them. Warnings first, and the third one will give you a strike at 3 seconds. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one a little bit later, because most of the drivers have about 1. We know, don't we, Ben, during the series, sometimes some of those drivers are just fantastic and not getting any warnings whatsoever, and other drivers, unfortunately, pick up a couple.
I think it's really a little bit of strategy involved in there. Now, of course, you don't want to get warnings. You don't want to be coming up to that line because, of course, 3 warnings typically constitutes a penalty. The difference comes is when it's minor track limits. And, of course, with the game, it's 3 warnings. So you look at that from a racer's perspective, and you're thinking, oh, is that Korsgaard?
Yeah, to the pit lane retirement.
I see.
So he obviously, once again, everybody, this is the Big Boys League, of course, so they can get damage on the underfloor there, side pods, rear wing and stuff that you can't really fix. And he may have felt that he had too much damage in that car and has elected to retire it.
As they save the car, opt to conserve the resources you do have in order to focus on later rounds. I say it's not worth fighting that losing battle, just wearing down what you have in store. But here we go, Erlinghauser down to P6 now as Lapalainen has made a charge. Although I don't think Erlinghauser's going to take that one lying down. They got the DRS, don't quite have the move, however, but are going to be keeping that Haas honest heading into lap 9.
It's the small micromanagement that you need to do at the moment. You're thinking of a long game. Of course, we're not even just getting on the 130 all the way through the race. Some of those drivers have elected to take a pit stop early and get rid of those tyres, which is Mr. Lenny Cook and Jasper ten Haken. They put those hard tyres in to go deeper into this race. But these other drivers here, at the moment, they're maintaining their strategy, seeing how they're going to work out. About 23%, you'd have to say, currently for those hard runners. And Thomas is leading the hard runner pack in P4.
I can't help but feel like it was too early to retire those mediums. It's so early in the race that I have to wonder, even with the VSC and the time savings you get from that, is it worth pushing those hards that much further and losing out on lap per lap time? That's the question in my mind.
I don't think they boxed that. The VSC had already ended, didn't they, when they boxed? If I'm not mistaken.
Well, it's coming to the tail end, so still would have been a little bit of a time save.
Well, we'll see. Strategies have paid off before in the past, and they've also gone all pearl-shaped at the same time. Email still leading this one there from Bilbus. Mr. Johnny and Thomas Hardwick in E3 and P4. But the biggest gap, of course, the top three then. You got 6.7 second gap to Thomas now, so those top three are just in a league of their own.
And it really is just amazing to see how the tyres coming into it say, oh, Larson going very deep, having to stop and reverse in order to get a line back on the field. And that was a very deep move, a bit of a dive, and a little bit of a Hail Mary it felt like, but unfortunately it did not work in that Alpha's favour. And down to P9, so they lost more than they gained, and a lot of time in the process too.
Got to be in it to win it, but you still got to stick your head down there and say, okay, I made a little mistake, it's fine. Wow, I think if anybody made a mistake, the McLaren driver made a mistake, because now he's 2.3 seconds behind Emma, and they were all very close, within a second of each other. And now, if anything, he has to be looking in his rear-view mirrors at a very quick Aston Martin.
Yeah, the story on the board tonight is we have brief yellow flag coming out in Sector 2 for a split second there. But that is going to be the battle between Johnny and Bilbas. Although saying that...
Johnny from Blossom. And here we go. This could be the moment, because look how close he is coming out of the corner. And that's without the DRS activated. Yes, it's activated right now, so boom. Should be, as I like to say, taking candy from a baby because of that advantage speed you're going to have. Bang gets the job done, closes it. Make sure you stick, because it's a tight hip, and we know that Emil said during post-race interview from the sprint that he locks up a lot there, and there's nothing I don't think that Mr. Jonathan Floss had to worry about. He didn't lock up at all.
Yeah, and...
Floss, not Floss. My apologies.
And what a run it was, but that looks like Bashford is the next one on the field to retire. Yeah, that's another pit lane there, but that is going to be 3 cars out of this race so far. Joshua Bashford, Gustav Korsgaard, and Bjorn de Boer out of
Lenny
the
Cook's
race.
sending a little bit of a late dive down into the corner there, and that's on Maximum Kloss, and of course there's Jasper ten Haken up the road. So, yep, gets the job done there for Lenny. Makes his way up into P11.
He's got his sights set on a target, and he's going to be fighting tooth and nail to get himself back up there. As you can see, Kloss and Larson going very deep again. I'm not sure if they're struggling with car control, but they seem to be struggling to keep it out on track right now. I think they're getting a little bit too familiar with the blue runoffs than I think they'd like.
Yeah, it's the setup, isn't it? It changes in changeable conditions, of course, because I did have a sprint race in similar, but for now, I had a bit of wet running, of course, during the qualifying, and a little dry running. Just have to see It's very, very difficult as those tires start to chew down a little bit more of controlling the car. Leon gets a little bit of a DRS tow from E2 Lapalainen, and Noah and the Ferrari just a little bit further back. And we know the Ferrari didn't pick up any points whatsoever in the sprint. They need to pick up some crucial points here today.
So it is an issue because right now, as it stands, we have got a few drivers kind of struggling for positions. They got Bilbas trying to keep the pressure on Foss right here. You got Erlinghauser trying to chase down Lapalainen, and Ilakorpi not too far behind. You have got Cook, who is continuing to rail on and bring the pressure over to the front end, the sharp end of the field. To say Ilakorpi dropping down massively though. I think they lost the rears. The car still looks to be intact, but they are down to P10 as Larson and Franklin. So I think there maybe was some damage on the Alfa Romeo's part, because those two are both in the pits.
Yeah, the Ferrari had some moment there and dropped, obviously, as you mentioned. Bilbas wants this one back for P2. He's trying to get a great exit there for the McLaren driver. He qualified on pole, but lost out there by, what, 44 thousandths of a second from a race win in the sprint.
So trying to chase them down.
Yeah.
Going to be almost, let's say, 340 kilometers an hour almost, 207 miles an hour. Crazy speeds that these machines can hit despite the amount of downforce they have at their disposal.
Just 341 is the fastest speed set by the Williams. And the McLaren, believe it or not, 334 was his fastest so far.
It goes to show how close to the limit these drivers are running now. So you can see in the helicopters that gap seems to be constantly growing and shrinking between Bilbas and Foss here. The Aston Martin is starting to get a little bit of a peel away, but just as quickly as they get a move and get some space on them, the quickly moving McLaren is keeping them on their toes.
Just got past there, Jasper Ten Haken, so man leading the championship, just getting an overtake on top of him, and he's also got Mr. Noah just lurking in the background. So Jasper Ten Haken, of course, but Lenny Cook and Jasper Ten Haken, remember, took that earlier pit stop. So they got rid of their mediums, they're running the hards. They got some pace at the moment, but you know Jasper Ten Haken wants to be able to be on the lead at the moment because he's going to be losing crucial points out to Emil. He's trying to make his way back there. But it's not really a place you want to be doing an overtake. Not if you want to be seeing the checkered flag this evening.
Yeah, it's a bit too close for comfort. It's too close to call there from Ten Haken as he throws that move on the inside. Maybe a little bit of a dummy, trying to scare the AlphaTauri a little bit at least. So making sure that they don't try any funny business as the DRS opens. Cook is going to have just about enough of a gap, it looks like, at least to keep that Mercedes at bay, but that gap is waning fast. You can see how close both themselves and Ilakorpi are now getting to the AlphaTauri, and with this second DRS zone coming up, the third of the lap, but the second for the maneuver, is it going to be quite enough? Not just yet.
Patience, patience, patience is what you need. It's very difficult to tell a Formula 1 driver patience at 340 kilometers an hour, but they need it. But you got to think about championship right now too. Where you're going to be finishing the championship. Where's your constructors finishing in the championship? Bilbas is thinking about, I want to take back Mr. John, as he's tucked up right on gearbox as they make way through the tricky S's here. 13, 14, 15. And coming up around 16, there's a great helicopter angle we see sometimes. You can see that the driver's focused right now as you're looking at Bilbas. Now down the back straightaway and get that letterbox open, and let's see if we can get the overtake done.
Yeah, and he's looking left and right, trying to see what moves he has at his disposal. Throws a little bit of a dummy, but doesn't quite have the gapping in order to get it done. So we're coming to the halfway point of the race now, but as we stand, we have Emir Djurkovic in the racing and back up to fighting form. P1 by about 4 seconds, where the two other podium drivers, Foss and Bilbas, have been fighting constantly, lap in and lap out, as Lapalainen goes into the pits
Box, box, box was the call there for the Haas team. But Bilbas now, and you got to think about this. They're getting close at the moment, Benjamin, to between your 50s and 60s on your rears. The rears take a lot of punishment around here. So you're getting to the danger zone of where you hit that lap pad on the rears. It's going to slide out and you do a spinneroo on 14 lap mediums. Who's going to jump first in that pit lane? And will that other top three, any of the top two, of course, or anybody in the top three, will they follow each other? Are they waiting to see what Imar does and copy him? Who's going to be bold and brave to go earlier? Who's going to be bold and brave to go later?
I'll say the two main places to take punishment is going to be the rear tires, and it's also going to be the right skirt and underfloor. And you just saw it there going onto the freeway. It is that transfer that you almost have to throw the car onto the curbs for. If you get a bad landing or get a bad exit, that could be potentially vital car damage that you don't want to be risking. But here we go. That is going to be Bilbas having the DRS, having the significant speed advantage, and is going to be able to secure themselves that position up in P2, soon to be P1, as the current race leader uses that gap that they've banked in order to head into the pits.
It's up to Imar to see whether or not the AlphaTauri team have timed it out perfectly to make sure he gets clear of traffic. He should come out ahead of Leon, and he does, and he's going to have clear air. That's going to work out brilliantly there for the AlphaTauri, because he didn't want to get caught up behind that three-way battle that's carrying a little bit further back.
Oh, but looking at the middle,
it's up to... Go ahead.
So he's just looking at the middle here. So you got Ten Hag and Cook and Corpy all fighting it out. Cook went very defensive initially, so got the move, and then Ten Hag just to say sweeping ever so slightly to that inside wall, getting real close to say responding to the defense with more offense, and that is going to be the tussling between these two is going to be a spicy one for sure. So far, Cook leads and has managed to get pretty good headway on the Mercedes. So both of them jostling with each other. Corpy is kind of just watching from the sidelines a little bit. They're waiting for these two to wear each other out, and then they are going to be picking on their ultimate or their optimal time to strike.
You have to strike. It's very, very difficult to overtake, but through those tight, twisty, narrow areas of the track. But once again, they're about 11 meters wide through most of it, so it's quite wide. I think there's a little bit of a tap on the wall there from Jasper Ten Haken's rear right. Might have engraved his Mercedes name into that wall, which is what you not want to be doing. But especially when you're second in the championship and the man that potentially could beat you today, is he gonna send that Mercedes? No, he's not. Gonna brake a little bit early there, make sure he doesn't lose an end plate, and still tuck up behind Lenny Cook. Thomas Hobbick going to pit lane.
It's going extremely narrow though. Say Holbeck in the pits now, but that narrow run is just going to compromise yourself for that start-finish straight. They've managed to keep a significant amount of pace, but they still will putting themselves in a potentially very compromising position.
Emas is putting in some banker laps there too, as he is he's looking at about 12.2 seconds away from the top two, so easily peasily going to come back way out ahead of them and resume the lead of the race.
So those two continue to fight up at the sharp ends. So you got Bilbas and Foss both within a couple tenths of each other, and neither is willing to give the other an inch under any circumstances. They're running their tires to the ragged edge. They are giving each other no space to breathe. Bilbas going a little bit defensive as a result, so peeling to more towards the middle before heading back to the outside to take the optimal line. But it is scary, is that they are pushing, and surely you have to wonder where the benefit ends and whether one of them just has to call it time in order to get some fresh boots on.
I'm just looking at some of the drivers. So here we go. Jasper Ten Haken and Lenny again exchanging Christmas cards early, allowing just enough space. They're actually a good wheel-to-wheel fighting, a lot better than what we've seen recently in some of the Formula One races, haven't we? Well, this is the beauty of esports racing. It's cleaner most of the time. Then again, they have a lot less to lose, don't they, than millions and millions of dollars in their contracts.
It's true, but we almost saw someone lose out from the entire race. Let's say Jackson is out, and that looks to be a full course safety car. We'll have to see, as we're on board with Tembrinka now, what that was. Going to see what it was from their point of view. Ooh, you just see they're embedded in the wall at the very distance. That was a Williams firmly tucked into the Armco.
Hopefully it's all okay. A couple of drivers going to be boxing. You have to box right now, don't you? Absolutely, Bill this. And Johnny, box. Gets a free pit stop for you. Your tyres are approaching your 60s anyway, so you'll be absolutely crazy to stay out right there on a race restart with some really burnt tyres.
Yeah, these two are completely burnt on the whole. And they need to be coming in. And in fact, both of them do just that. But this leaves Amir in a prime position. He's already got the tyre change done. He's got the warmed up hards by this point. But no, he's also going to be going in, letting the leaders come out on top of the safety car and maybe banking on a bit of a faster tyre.
Yeah, that's what they've done. The top two have actually switched over to the soft tyres. And so that's Emars that had to copy that strategy. His team's on the radio there at the AlphaTauri going, well, we think that they might have gone on the softs. And so he's had to come in very late there and had to counter off that strategy because you don't want to be out there on those hard tyres when the other two drivers are going to have the softs.
There you go. Crucially, manages to get out just ahead of Hardwick. So there's going to be no one standing between him and those top two runners. As the AMG safety car makes an appearance once again.
As you can see, the fake lake with the boats. We don't know how they got him in there. We use one of those cranes that they have lift him in there, although I don't think they have enough weight. But that's now, remember, Emar has two drivers to get past now, all on the fresh rubber. You're gonna have, where are we at? 19 of 29. So we might be looking at about, 8 laps or so of green flag racing, and then you're going to subtract a few of them without the DRS. Bit of work to do, but if one man can do it, the flying Danish driver can.
As it stands here, we have got, say, not too much running left, all things considered. Everyone has swapped out to either the medium or the soft tyre, with how little of the race is left to go. So if they can eke out those red walls to their absolute maximum, they can get out that track position that they need and then bank on defending it till the end of the race. But the question that I have on my mind is just how effective are those softs to be? Like, the effective range of those softs surely going to die out a couple laps before the race ends, and then you're going to be on their back foot, especially if a medium runner comes knocking.
True, it depends on how kind you're going to be to those soft tyres. Remember, they don't wear as quickly as they do at the start of the race because you've burnt all that fuel off. Remember, you start the race with essentially a fuel, which is about, I don't know how many kilograms of fuel that you have on it, but it's basically like having a small child on board. So all of a sudden you just parked the car and you pit stop and got rid of the child, and now you're just driving solo on that car. So it's a lot lighter. You'll get eke a few more laps out of those softs, but exactly, you could come down to that very final couple of laps where those mediums perhaps going to be a little bit better. It's Thomas Hardwick on those 3-lap mediums, which are still pretty fresh. Are they going to be just a little bit more pacey towards the end there to bring it to the top 3?
A silent question on my mind as well. So big winners and big losers out here today as we head into the final 10 laps now. We're on lap 20 of 29, and we are wondering, or the question on my mind at least, is we have some drivers who have really made some strides, but so far 2 focuses of the season up until Amir's return were Ten Haken and Lapalainen, almost seen as rivals to one another. Now Ten Haken is down in P8 and Lapalainen up in P5, but they do still have a significant points disparity. So with the trusty commentator maths, if Lapalainen can win and Ten Haken gets 7th or lower, they are mathematically still in the championship fight, but that's only mathematically.
And this is, boys and girls and ladies and gentlemen out there, the reason why you pay attention in mathematics at school, isn't it? So you can do what Ben does and crunch those numbers on the fly. Welcome along, of course, to the SwiftX Racing Series 1 that we have. And this is round 13 more and more. We had a little bit of a break, haven't we? Safety cars in this lap. NordVPN is going to bring you that fantastic. NordVPN should be bringing all the safety cars, aren't they? But it's a safe way to definitely surf the internet, for sure, and that helps when you are in all over the world, and you're in some countries where you might be a little bit. I'm not quite sure if I can trust the internet here. Bilbus can trust in his acceleration pedal as the McLaren leads into the lap 21.
It's a great getaway from Bilbus there, and Cook dropping down the order. Herlinghauser getting some moves, but immediately having to concede them as the softs are starting to show their strength. Big fighting down the bottom end of the field. Herlinghauser having to concede to Ten Hacken and to Cook, managing to slot himself in just ahead of the Ferrari of Villacorpi, but not quite being where they want to be. They have a chance to fight their way back up, especially if Villacorpi sandbags the other soft runners behind him, but time is running out. Now, Mir, right on the tail of that Aston Martin, is going to be going for a run on the inside. Safety car means that DRS has yet to kick in, but these two are still taking it as a chance to drag race.
Going, two of them. The Aston Martin has got 2 in one corner. If he can make it stick, he's going to go on the outside. Yes, he will. He'll have to lift off there from Larson. So fantastic job there. Up in a P9 now. Mr. Franklin.
So sweeping around. Both the Aston Martins are really giving it their all to say. Franklin's double overtake around the long sweep section. So Foster's going to try and see if they can reclaim their spot from the AlphaTauri. But the AlphaTauri has already made significant headway to Bilbas in the lead, leading him to just fend off people like Hardwick while those medium runners still have life in them.
Because he miles up at a P2. Look at that, fastest lap. He's about to bring it to the McLaren. And just remind everybody, I am back. Now I'm back with a vengeance to the AlphaTauri, setting a fashion statement very, very early with plenty of laps to go here. If he wants to take the lead of this race, certainly looking at it.
So, well, he's made really good strides, and the strategy was almost perfectly in his favor. Whether he went to the hards or to the softs like he did, he was in a spot where he could have held a really good position on the rest of the field. Of course, they ended up going for those softs because, well, the pace would have meant that any lead that he had on the hards would have surely diminished very quickly. But as I say, Lapalainen and Cook fighting with each other now. Lapalainen's on the mediums, doesn't quite have that same speed as a result. So Cook is going to pretty quickly slip by and take themselves into P5 here.
Great battles all around, of course. Safety cars also breed safety cars. They're all bunched up together. Basically, the top 14 in this race at the moment are separated by 8 seconds from our leader, the McLaren. He might not be the leader very time soon there. If Mark can get the loud pedal as loud as possible. Down the back straight away.
And it looks like a minor hiccup there as Tim Brinker looks to have, say, briefly dropped out of the session along Bashford. And we should be okay on the whole, but...
No, I don't. I think we have a problem.
We have a problem?
Houston, we have a problem. That's in SOS. Yeah, we're seeing some of those little messages at the bottom there, people dropping out. This is very, very difficult, isn't it? Because we've done about, 70% of the race distance at the moment, because we're at lap 23 now, 29, maybe 22.
Yeah, I say lap 23, but it looks like everyone has dropped out of the session.
Yeah, I've been booted out of the session as well, too. They've shut the door on me in the casting box, even though you're there with me as well.
It looks like, with 5 laps to go, the session has collapsed. So I've just got dropped out of the session as well.
Yeah, it has. Unfortunately, that's the case, because you saw those drivers being essentially booted from the session. I got booted from the session, and it's going to be very, very difficult to bring the pictures, of course, of that one. If Ben can't be here in the session, We'll definitely find out, and we'll get back to you guys in a minute. Chat, just keep an eye out there in the chat. Thank you very much for sticking with it. We will keep you updated from... We'll go chat to the race control and find out what the situation is.
Well, we are just waiting to see what the game is... what the game is doing, for one. And basically leaving it at the moment with race control, checking with the rules, and just seeing what the circumstance would be now. Say we are 5 or 6 laps from the finish. So the real question comes at, and we're seeing 2 camps. We are seeing the camp of drivers taking the points as they stood from their results at the time of disconnect, or running a very small race at the end. And there we go. That is, say, main coordinator hopping in the chat for us. What is the plan?
So pretty much, as you guys saw, the race just randomly ended. I was just spectating where I was out the race, but it just ended just randomly, and it's obviously disconnects everyone. So we're just going through the rules now to figure out what our plan of action is. The original talking point is if it's not 90%, we run a 25%. But we're also having a look, if it's over 75%, then it's just a half points awarded. So we're just having a look at it now.
All right, I believe it is over about 75%, if I'm not mistaken. We got to lap 22 of 29, I believe. I'm not sure we can count 23.
We're just verifying the number because we're not 100% sure if it's 75% or 90%. So we're just having a look at it now.
All right. Excellent. And they're going to be sorting that out, of course. If you want to be a part of sorting that out with these fantastic team there, join the Discord. And that was Mr. Joshua Bashwood we're listening to at the moment. They're sorting out the issues there with race control and everything here at the SwiftX Racing Series. Of course, Digital Motorsports is one of our fantastic sponsors. What do you think there, Ben? It was interesting, wasn't it? It was heating up towards a battle. We weren't quite sure who was going to win that. Ema, of course, had the extra pit stop on top of it, so he was looking pacey to bring it to the McLaren. Could the McLaren have defended off there towards the end? And, well, if it does get called as a 75%er, then the McLaren driver will take the race win away. How's it going to pan out for the likes of Jasper?
Well, the other thing...
E2 Lapperline and stuff like that in the championship.
The other thing is if they're going to take the positions as they were at time of disconnect, or if they're going to take the positions originally from the result of the sprint race. So this, whether they're going to take positionally from the start or positionally from the time of the disconnect. Surely it'll be the latter. But I'm getting word from race control, from officials, that there will be a 25% race being set up now. And just waiting to see what the potential game plan is on any other fronts, because, say, there are some questions going around the field. Some are saying 5 lapper, some are saying don't restart, and running the napkin maths just quickly here. 24, we'll say we were coming up to, I believe it was lap 24, correct me if I'm wrong there.
Lap 22 I thought was the last lap.
I was there to say we're not long came from the safety car restart, but I thought a couple of laps. Either way, say if we go from, say, 20, we'll say 23, because I think we're starting lap 23 by the time the leaders were getting around, or at least when I was in the lobby. That is 80% around of the race.
Yeah, I figured it was definitely over the 75% mark. They're contemplating whether or not they might do another sprint race, mate, because the sprint race weekend, of course, is the feature race. We had the sprint race before. A sprint race would give you a 10-lapper. Now, 25% obviously will be a little bit longer. Got to remember, too, everybody has their regular jobs, don't they, day-to-day lives, of course, school and all that sort of stuff. So it gets very late in certain parts of the world.
And that's the
especially for you guys in Europe. And that's afternoon for me, no problems. But for Europeans, it's a little bit more difficult, especially when you have to delay over race. They're not like the regular, obviously, Formula 1 drivers that get paid to turn up anyway, so they don't mind. They don't have to go to school or work the next day, do they?
So that is really the other half of whether it's, say, fair because there are people with commitments. There are people with, say, lives outside of the league. So for them, this might already be coming up to time. So to do another race on top of it might just be asking that little bit too much.
Exactly. That's why they're obviously going to put it to a vote with everybody in the league there, and that's just the way we work in a democracy. Of course, it works in a voting system, so it is. You can't please everybody, unfortunately. These technical issues occur. You just have to deal with what the rules and regulations state, and then, of course, everybody agrees and disagrees on how they want to proceed with this. It's always unfortunate, but it's out of our controls and out of our hands. Fortunately, we didn't plan on unplugging the cables or anything out of the network to stop the race. We wanted to see the race. It was building up to a cracker towards the end there, wasn't it, Ben?
Yeah, it was really building up to something special at the end. From what we're seeing, it looks like we are having a 10-lap sprint as a final decider.
I agree with that. I think, Ben. What do you? Because it's not. It's a 25% that people are talking about. It's going to be a little long. A 10-lapper is exciting and fun. You're still going to get your DRS in there. It's not going to extend out to be crazy late for people that do have those commitments as it gets late. 5 lappers would be just too short, of course. You don't know real time to get the overtaking done. So, well, they've made the rules for that one. We just turn up and flick the microphones on and just cast what we see, don't we, Ben?
Yes, well, at the end of the day, we are here to report on the racing as it happens, and looks like this is the next course of action for said racing. So 10-lap sprint, same tyre as you were on at the start of lap 23, and we should be getting into the thick of it in just a few minutes from now. The lobby is already in the process of being set up, and we'll be there as soon as.
have formation lap?
Yeah, so we are getting just into the race now. From what I have been told and from what I understand, there will be a formation lap as per the previous sprint and as per the main race itself. So remember, this sprint race is effectively to decide how the final points tally is based on, say, the grids, based on where we left up at lap 23. This is where it comes down to the deciders. And of course, it is under 90%, so the race is in line with the rules, being restarted at sprint distance, or 25%. And in the theme of a sprint weekend, the sprint is going to replace that 25% standard race rule.
So double sprints.
Double sprints. We are just waiting now on everyone to get ready with their setups, and then we shall be underway.
Yeah, I remember setups, 2 drivers, if you are listening out there. That's the key thing, is that we do know that you've been through this before, Ben. When you've had to restart races before, sometimes some of the drivers forget completely to load their setups in because you're not obviously prepared for it. And it can catch you off guard, especially when you've only got 10 laps in this case to do it. They've been through this 10-lap sprint earlier. They've had to gruel through our feature race, which was supposed to be 30. We got 22, I think, 23, I believe, before those technical issues were called. And the drivers you'd mentioned there, Ben, have to start on the tires that they finished, well, what we called it lap 23, right? Whatever the tires are on lap 23 in the previous feature race. They have to start this one on.
All the drivers have been instructed to retain identical setups and tyre combos. So they should be in a position to continue almost as if they were exactly where they left off. They got the same position and the same kit throughout.
And the only difference, of course, is that they have the fresher boots now. But, Ben, in that last race, mate, they'd only ever done a couple of laps on those tyres anyway after that the last pit stop. So they're pretty even anyway at that point when it comes to the tyre difference.
Yeah, with everyone on the safety car restart, just coming off of it, the tyre age doesn't really matter for them. So this will just be a balancing of the field, in effect.
Yes. It might have worked out like maybe a little bit like the E2 lap of Linen. Remember, I think he was on 7-lap medium tyres. He did 14 for the hards. He was up from P15 to P6. So you still take it to him. That's pretty good. Still going to pan out for him anyway, because now he's got fresh boots. Before he had a little bit older boots, and that's just the way it is. And it wasn't planned. You make use of what you have. But they're going to be lining up again for the 3rd time this evening. And over to you, Benjamin, for the 3rd time this evening.
And you can see there, so everyone's lining up, minus the DNFers, and there we go. Everyone is away. So minor lighting bug with the timing tower, but that is a Bilbas out up ahead, and immediately, so we got spins and contact and fighting down at the bottom end. That looks like Cook, who was on his side, and carbon strewn everywhere across the field. So that is Foss,
and what a launch there
driver.
from Johnny. Johnny up at a P1 immediately, getting there from Bilbas. So fantastic. Looks like Maximum Colossus might have had a little bit of a moment. Somebody's gone off. Actually, that's oh no, is that Franklin? Yes, it is. Franklin with a little bit of damage on the Aston Martin, because they're getting obviously very, very greedy early, because they know they've only got 10 laps to go, but maybe too greedy. You still got some laps to go, guys.
It's just to balance that aggression. Everyone needs to be a lot more careful, because these 10 laps are so crucial. So Cook and Franklin are battling at the bottom before they try and get back to the rest of the field eventually. You see jumping over that curve there, through and under, before heading out to the main back straight and giving it all of the beans. Just trying to get away before that DRS kicks in. It is that gap that matters. And the slipstream from the AlphaTauri, so it might be enough to look for a move, but not enough to secure one just yet.
Yeah, Bilbas wants this one back, doesn't he? Because essentially was leading that race before the restart, and he wants to get this. But what a great launch there from the Aston Martin. Very, very lucky, I'd have to say. All those drivers at the moment didn't have any hard tires on going into that one before, because it would have been difficult for them to start the race on this one. Thomas having a side-by-side battle at the moment there with Larson.
You can see that Alfa Romeo running wide, and Hardwick almost getting juggled between themselves and Ten Hacken, as they're struggling to keep that car under control, it seems. A little bit of a wiggle coming out there, but managing just about to now have a handle on it, and just in time too. They've got plenty of assailants behind looking to take a piece of the pie. Both Mercedes pushing and keeping that pressure on as Lapalainen jostles down below. That is Ten Hacken, first of the Silver Arrows to make a move. Ten Brinker was almost tempted to lead on through behind his teammate. Doesn't have to get all the way through though just yet. He can now rely on his teammate to defend on his behalf, as the gap was closing a little bit. The door was shrinking thinner and thinner. But this mid-pack is really where the fighting is.
Yeah, one of the other castles like Carl Swift would say, well, he left the door open, he's getting burgled. That's the problem, isn't it, when you leave your front door open? It's going to hurt those medium runners a little bit for now, because they got to get them up to temperature a little bit quicker than the softs, of course. But, you know, remember still E2 Lapalainen there gained a lot of positions during the races. Bilbas wants to try to take this one for the McLaren. And another good thing for some of the drivers there that might have been a bit of a problem that was nursing a little bit earlier there, Mr. Benjamin, it's the fact that here we go, Lapalainen now putting the pressure right on the back there of Luke Ten Brinker. And but the thing is, before, mate, a lot of them were nursing some 2 warnings, and now they got them all reset. So you're all back to 0 warnings, but some drivers already on 1 warning. We're on lap 3.
And as we were saying earlier, in the racing drivers context, those 2 warnings are almost like free track points. So you can cut a little bit, get maybe, say, half a tenth, a tenth a second, use a warning, you have 2 of those, and then you have to drive clean for the rest of the race. A lot of drivers do end up using that system to really just extract 110% out of any race that they do. And SwiftX is no different even.
Basically, you have an extra life, isn't it, in the game at the moment? Just one. And some of the drivers might elect to do that, of course, a little bit of corner cutting. You corner cut too much, but you get instantly slapped for 5 seconds, so you do have to be very, very careful with that too, noticing in the back of your mind. Just gain that 1/10. How about Lapalainen right now? Is he going to be gaining anything on the back of that Mercedes? No, he won't. And Billis didn't do anything at the moment there on Johnny, but DRS is not enabled yet.
So it's not quite going to be there for now, but time is running short. DRS is now in full effect. All drivers now have access, and now we shall see even more sparks flying than we expected before. So Bilbas hot on the tail of Johnny in that Aston Martin. Say just a couple tenths separating the 2. They've got to be careful with the curbs. Now he's going to have to conserve his resources as well. And for just to say, on the topic of track limits and penalties, drivers were warned specifically about washing wide in turn 7, and they are being policed particularly aggressive on that.
Larson's out. Larson's virtual safety car. Larson is in the fence, and a lot of damage on that car. He's in the race, but it's going to be almost plump last. He can't even turn that car right now. It's Tokyo drifting here in Miami.
So nursing that wounded Alfa Romeo as much as they can. There you go, that is all it's going to take. And that is going to be a drop from the Alfa Romeo, which means both drivers are out of the running technically.
Thing is now, too, that just delays the inevitable. DRS is enabled. Green flag conditions, and Bilbas might have had a really good launch here. He has had a fantastic launch. He could think about taking this in Johnny in turn 1. And you better believe he has done that. So he managed to sneak in back on the racing line, back into the lead of this race.
It's a great move there. Say Hardwick and Ten Brinker are continuing to battle amongst themselves. And you say, look, they're getting wheel to wheel, side to side. They're bashing rubber, they're bashing rims, and they're drag racing down the start-finish straight. But in the end, Hardwick's going to be on the recharge. It's going to be the Mercedes coming out on top, at least for now. Hardwick's still going to give him plenty of a hard time, though. It's drawing back onto the side of him once again. but I don't think it's quite enough, as he's now having to nestle back behind, recharge, and now focus on defending from the Haas.
I remember too, there's those medium drivers as well. They're medium runners. So you don't know whether or not those soft tires have been burnt a little bit. They're only about 30% probably, which is quite a bit you've chewed through. Remember, they had the different fuel loads. And look at that, top three still going at it tooth and nail. Johnny wants that back, and of course, keep an eye out for Emar. Of course, he's won a few races up his sleeves before, and he's sitting back there quietly in the background, probably charging his battery, getting ready for his time to strike for the Flying Dane.
There he goes, looking to see what he can do in this situation. I think he's letting the two drivers up ahead fight here. He has the resources that he needs to stay where he is, but he doesn't necessarily have enough to go for a charge. It's going to be almost a big dive there, as it was very late, it looks like, on the brakes from Foss, but it's going to be a move for the AlphaTauri here. He's going to leave the space. He's going to be on the inside, though, as Foss is going to hold the narrow line. He's not going to let it go that easily. Has no choice but to dip back for now, but is looking to save for that potential switchback. These two are going to be battling for a lot of this race, it seems.
I'd say for another 40 come, absolutely for sure. As Tom's Hardware come in there, he must have had quite a bit of damage on that car. Still, possibilities. He has retired in the pit lane, so too much damage. That's unfortunate, because it looks like he might very well miss out on a couple of those points there now in the top 10. Still 13. Well, now we're down to 12.
Thing is, I wouldn't have even retired if my car was missing wings and damaged underfloor, because there is only 3 non-points paying positions. So I can theoretically run it out, lose seconds per lap, but with the likes of, say, Illicorpi, 23 seconds behind. So I could very easily make a case for myself that even if I am severely running slow, then I'd still be getting valuable points.
It's true, but you're also taking a risk of you accidentally hitting the wall there, putting carbon fiber over there and calling another virtual safety car. So that's another thing that might have come into his mind as, once again, last of the late breakers into into the final penultimate couple of turns here. And very clever racing between the top 3, just taking it easy, realizing, okay, now soon we're going to do some switcheroos as we start 7 of 10, 3 to go. And any one of these top 3 are very capable of being on the top step and spraying the fizzy stuff at the Hard Rock Stadium.
So yeah, technically lap 29 out of 32 here, as we are surging through the race, say just over 50% distance, the sprint format covering for the final 20 to 25%. It is really coming down to the wire, which would have happened anyway, I think. They were running so close to each other in the initial feature race that I think it would be rude to say that they wouldn't be fighting till the bitter end.
Yeah, we were talking about that, didn't we, before during the technical issue, that it was heating up here in Florida. Absolutely for sure, for a crunch time battle at the end. And guess what? We've got it right now, live in your pitches. SwiftX, of course, and NordVPN and Digital Motorsports are going to bring you the last couple of laps of this race. Peter Locke as well, too, a little bit there, tucked up behind E2 Lapalainen, who's doing okay as the only medium runner. Well, speaking of runs again, here we go. Emar making a run, perhaps there, on Johnny into turn 17. Classic overtaken hairpin. Does he make it stick here? They're going to have a bit of a drag race, and see the rear end slides out on him. Couldn't get the power down. He doesn't like that corner. Remember, before he said that in the post-race interview from the first sprint race, because he can't get it down. This time he didn't lock up. He just couldn't get the power down, exiting the corner.
Yeah, it's just about getting that power down. You've got to be so balanced. And that's really, it is a matter of balance. And we talked about the rears getting warmed, but looking at some of the tire telemetry for these drivers, they're managing to keep the fronts and rears relatively on the same level of use. So credit where it's due to the drivers' setups and managing their aero to best effect, managing the grip, of course balancing with their driving style. It is one of attrition by this point. They have 12 positions, 10 of which play points. So regardless of where you end up, still worth continuing.
First one into this little battle that's brewing between the House driver there and Luke and Peter Locke. That's a battle for P5, P6, and P7. We know that the mediums are going to have a lot more grippiness to them, traction, for now, but is it going to be enough? Because you've got to find a way around. Oh, he's definitely found a way around that because Luke has made an error coming out of the corner. Had a little bit of tank slapper. Has lost a bit of end plate now. He has to commit to the rest of this race right now with that damage.
And just like that, there's going to be Locke coming through with 2 overtakes in the span of a single straight. One by his own and one by his opponent's admission. But that is a Red Bull up into P5 here.
And that's crucial too, isn't it? Because Lapperline's right up there in the championship hunt, and that's going to be a little bit more hurting now. Jasper, of course, in the championship is there. He's 3 seconds down the road, so I don't think he's going to do anything about it. Pete Locke's got a little bit of work to do if he wants to catch him, but the top 3 still completely at it. Alfa Romeo versus Aston Martin versus McLaren for the penultimate lap of the SwiftX Motor Racing Series. Round 13, Miami.
I think with the hiatus from Emir, I think the way we're seeing it the most is through the throttle control. He said he didn't have too good of a time getting the power down coming out of some corners, and we just heard it there, the blip in the throttle, the jump in the revs as he lost the rears for a split second, immediately caught it back into control, but still, I think that sort of delicate, finer action is something that can easily be lost without regular practice. It's doing amazing to stay in the position he's at for the time being, but he's got to think quickly and think on his feet if he's going to have any chance at taking in this next lap, because this one is for all the marbles.
Well, all the marbles on the track too that'll be for him, but he's got to be careful because he's got 2 warnings as well. The other 2 drivers up the road from him have 1.
Well, he's used those
So
track
they can
points.
afford. He has used them. So now we can't afford to have any little bit of corner cutting. Whereas Bilbus and Johnny can, if they want to risk it for the biscuit, of course, in the final lap of this race. Try to cover them off. And there's your top 3. So anything can happen. Does happen, especially in Formula 1. Who's managed to save their energy too? That's going to be the key part right now, isn't it? Because you've had 10 laps to do it.
I'll say a few of them are starting to run on fumes now. I know that Emir was running about 10%, and I would not be surprised if the other 2 are doing the same. Certainly Bilbas, just by nature of trying to keep Voss behind him. And it is close. It's coming close to say they've gone past turn 7. Nobody's abusing turn 7, which is good. But this is where it gets spicy. Voss throws a bit of a dummy on the inside of Bilbas, tries to spook him, closing that gap, coming into the technical sector of the track here. It'll be very close. Might be another photo.
It's all about the exit of 16 right there. This is it. Because that's your DRS. Is it going to be enough? Has the Aston Martin got enough? He's got the power of 8th gear. You can see the energy is going to be depleted from all the cars anyway, because if you're saving any right now, you're not going to get any refunds. Here we go. Challenge for the leader race into the final couple of corners. Are we going to see a 44 thousandths of a second cross the line between the 2 cars? Maybe again, Ben. Whoa, no, that's not going to work out though. Right now, he's going to come back there. He can probably use the track limit, but there McLaren or Bilbas does get it done. Wins the race.
And that is going to be Bilbas. I am Bilbas taking the win, the Miami Grand Prix. I would not be surprised if the stewards take a look at Voss's move there. But as it stood, what a great battle right to the very, very end.
Yeah, they had to risk it for the biscuit, didn't you, in the final couple of corners. So Imad didn't get that job done. And it's in P3. But look at that. It's even crucial for Jasper ten Hag, and he finishes in P4. And he's the man that's leading the championship. And he's as close as he can to the other man that could define him a chance of winning the championship. So great sprint race at the end, isn't it, that we wanted to have, and we got it for the feature race. And the McLaren has the top step.
And there you go. What a performance that it was overall. You can see there, so retiring out on track. That's Larson. But retiring onto the comfort of the top step is going to be Bilbas. As they Johnny in second and Emir up in third. As they a fine return to form, but some great racing to be had. I imagine, say, a couple of racing incidents to be reviewed as well. Because I mean, the start was pretty chaotic of this second, the second race, and I believe that was Cook. Although the emission that I am seeing in the chat is that it was someone who tapped the rear, so not saying overcooking.
Ah. Well, it's also, you can see it on the screen there real quickly there, but there was the, you'll get your points paid for the top 10. It's only going to show you the 8 because of the fact that it was set up for a sprint format. It's the only way to be able to do that in the game, to be able to show you that. But congratulations to the Dutch driver. Wow, Dutch drivers, why are they always so quick, aren't they? Because Bilbus wins the Miami GP, sponsored by NordVPN.
Yeah, so brilliant racing it was, and say thank you to all the drivers as well, purely because it was a tough situation to deal with, and they certainly held their own and showed their real integrity there, and they have proven themselves that even in unideal scenarios when the game isn't working in their favor, they can still do very well.
And that they do. And overcoming all the problems they can be thrown at you too for now, and we still find a way. That's what SwiftX, that's what Swift Racing League is all about. So Benjamin, I think we're going to be off to, where are we off to for the next race?
So next week's race is going to be none other than Mexico. So the Circuit Hermanos Rodriguez for round 14 of the SwiftX Championship Series. We're going to say we're going to waste no time in getting ourselves prepped and ready to head over there. So we thank you for your patience in the chat. Thank you all for joining us. And with all that has been said, we will see you for, say, there's only 3 rounds to go. Only 3 rounds to go. Jeez.
Exactly. Just like the regular Formula 1 season, isn't it? So Mexico, Brazil, and then wrapping it up at Abu Dhabi. Thank you very much, Benjamin.
Say brilliant to have you, mate. And we will see you all next time, next week, same time. Keep it SwiftX, and we will see you very soon.